When I first came to ESP, I had on the surface something that seemed to be like the perfect life, or a pretty good life. Like superficially, materialistically, I was very successful. I had the job, I had the dog, I had the car, I had the boyfriend, I had the blah, 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 the clothes, everything that I thought I needed in order to be okay. And yet, I couldn't stand to be with my family for more than 2 hours at a time. And the idea of being honest with even my best friend was something that was so far outside the realm of possibility that I just kind of thought you always lived your life inauthentically. And when I came to ESP and I started to do the work in the Goals Lab, do the work in the classes, I started to transform in a way that I never expected. Like, I literally didn't know that you could spend time with someone and not be nervous. I literally didn't know that it was possible to have a week with your family where you didn't feel like leaving. I just thought that that wasn't really possible. I thought it happened in the movies. And now that's my life, that's my reality. I have an experience of my family that is nothing but joy. And it's astounding.
Keith Raniere, a dangerous and now imprisoned narcissist, was the leader of the NXIVM Cult. This will be a look at how he managed to manipulate so many, and an analysis of his properties as a cult leader.
How is the source of your genius the same as the source of your insecurity?
Well, it's if you knew everything and could do everything, then you'd be a very predictable machine. You know, creativity, one could say, is possibly a direct reflection of that which we cannot quantify, not only about other people, but even about ourselves. And to some degree, you either have to accept that as a unit, it's an article of faith, or really understand that there is a certain insecurity to it.
NXIVM was a cult that Raniere used as a personal harem, initially set up as a pseudo-self-help LMM scheme that ensured that Keith had total control of his followers. Keith had developed disturbing ways of buying loyalty from his followers. This included slavery, physical branding with a cattle branding iron, group sex, and commitment ceremonies. The group's ideas were around self-actualisation and trauma management. Keith also had a few up-and-coming celebrities on his books, including Smallville's Alison Mack, who was probably the best actress on Smallville at the time, an incredibly talented actress and singer. Fellow co-star Christian Crook dabbled with the cult, alongside Alison's partner Nikki Klein, being a full-on member and defender right up until 2023. The group was set up in New York City, and at their height had 700 members. Raniere went to trial on May 7, 2019 for a slew of offences, which included sexual assault, sex trafficking, racketeering and forced labour, with many of Raniere's followers pleading guilty beforehand and agreeing plea deals to testify against Raniere. Raniere had been a master manipulator, and since the 1980s had cultivated a subculture around women worshipping him. He proclaimed that he had an IQ better than Einstein's, magical powers, eidetic memory, and I quote, the keys to world peace, and people unbelievably believed it. The group Raniere found was called NXIVM due to its layered meanings, including meaning the next millennium and a place of learning. The company began as boutique executive coaching for aspiring millionaires, think Gary Vee, but over time it grew into a kind of Ponzi scheme, spanning globally and had celebrity clients. A lot of what NXIVM modelled on resembled Scientology. There were NXIVM daycare centres, yoga schools, advocacy groups, science foundations and humanitarian funds. And similar to the Jonestown Temple, they may have been set up with good intentions. Jonestown was a staunch civil rights group, but by the end of it, Raniere had to face trial under a RICO indictment, which is the same piece of law used to snare mafia bosses. And at the end of Jonestown, despite their civil rights intentions, 900 people died. This is what happens when tyrants get drunk with power. Some of the testimony against Raniere was gut-wrenching. He groomed 3 underage women into sexual relationships, confined a woman to a bedroom for nearly 2 years, her crime was for kissing another man, blackmailed women with intimate photographs, and of course, seared his initials into women's skin with a cattle iron. Over 2 decades, Raniere ruined the lives of many people that tried to expose him. Raniere was extremely litigious, hired private investigators, committed harassment, and in some cases, managed to bankrupt those speaking out. Raniere was motivated by lies and spite.
Can hate me and do. I think I'm an odious type of a character. Awful actually. Both the devil able to get the exact same treatment under our justice system.
Raniere managed to create a myth and ethos around himself. Many stories about Keith's genius date back to the 1980s. Raniere managed to convince members and the press that he had super intelligence. This was through a self-administered IQ test where he scored higher than Albert Einstein. Again, I stress, self-administered IQ test. Raniere studied the sales techniques of Amway, another multi-level marketing company. Raniere said that other MLM companies were unethical and that he was going to implement something better for humanity. It was to be a new concept in marketing. It took many years through the 80s and 90s and other failed health companies before NXIVM found root in 1998. NXIVM would live on for another 23 years. One method that Raniere fed into, and that quite possibly helped his charm offensive, was the use of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. NXIVM members were taught how to use this method effectively. The whole concept of NXIVM was recruitment, and recruitment. Some people argue that NLP is a pseudoscience, but Raniere was a fan of its technique. It is a highly developed method of leaving suggestions in the other person's mind. In Raniere's case, leaving the suggestions in the woman's mind. Rapport is a central philosophy of NLP. You match someone's breathing, their linguistic choices, their movement, and increase agreeability. NLP coaching is a growing facet of the self-help industry. It is used by MLM marketers, pick-up artists, business improvement YouTubers, and salespeople, and it is sold as a chance to make people money, find love, have lots of sex, and unlock success. Whether this works or not is a matter of debate, but it was a tool that Raniere was known to use on many of his victims. Raniere used many dark tactics to keep people either on his side or living in fear. He tapped into their sense of destiny and forged psychological connections through hypnosis methods, confessions, intensive sessions where people revealed all their anxieties to Raniere, and of course physical touching. For example, Raniere told one of his victims during their session that she may have been the reincarnation of Hitler, and convinced other members that in a past life they were literal Nazi members. These repetitive suggestions drilled in feelings of shame, guilt and inferiority. They were also taught that resisting such feedback would hamper their progress within the group. Therefore, these ridiculous claims had to be accepted and unchallenged. And what does this do to the victim? It makes them want more treatment and more help from Raniere. It creates a stigma within them that only NXIVM can cleanse. It was guilt used as manipulation, and with time and repetition, these hateful ideas grew legs. Raniere had what he referred to as spiritual wives. These women were recruited by other women, with ages going as low as 12 in some cases. Raniere liked to do business with women he had sex with, which could have been a psychological effort to draw people in and build exclusive trust between Raniere and the victim. The women were forbidden from having relationships outside of Raniere, with one woman being imprisoned and shunned within the community for fostering romantic relationships away from Keith Raniere. Again, it seemed that Keith Raniere used sex as a weapon and a method of manipulation. NXIVM eventually grew into a massive network. At its height, it had 700 members and had worked with nearly 20,000 people. Raniere's members and close circle included the son of the Mexican president and members of the Seagram's whiskey family. This was the elite amongst North American circles, and as the cult grew, Raniere's power grew. Heiress Claire Brothman's money was used by the organisation to fund private jets, a horse farm outside of Albany, several properties rented to NXIVM students, and a Trump Towers condo overlooking Central Park. But this would pale in comparison to the legal spending that NXIVM spent destroying the lives of their enemies.
And although this is a horrible tragedy, with many people being hurt, I think the main thrust of this has been the oppression, but really a different issue, which is hard for me to express.
At the trial, it was revealed that members had to pay $2,000 to gather in Silver Bay, New York, just to celebrate Raniere's birthday. This was a tribute ceremony known as the Vanguard. It was described as a summer camp for adults, but all centered around Keith Raniere. It was also revealed that Keith Raniere controlled the calorie intake of his female members and would dish out extreme and harsh punishments for any weight gain. There was a slave and master system in place that was controlled and led by Alison Mack, who came up with a disgusting idea of branding the female members with KR initials. Alison Mack was herself on a crazy recruitment campaign on Twitter to try and snare more celebrities into the cult. Her role could be compared to that of Ghislaine Maxwell and the type of relationship she had with Jeffrey Epstein. NXIVM developed a method of shunning similar to that of Scientology, where they labelled somebody as suppressive if they criticised the system in place. An SP, a suppressive person in Scientology, is somebody that the forces of the organisation target as an enemy. This kind of siege mentality is a known tactic used by the Soviet Union and the Nazis. You create a siege mentality and an atmosphere of fear within your group that the outside world is all enemies. And then who knows what you can command your members to do. In labelling those outside of NXIVM as suppressive, you dehumanise the enemy. One of the most impressive achievements of NXIVM was getting a tete-a-tete with the Dalai Lama at a small Albany venue. His Holiness attended alongside the heiress Berman sisters. The appearance of a holy and spiritual leader cemented legitimacy for the group and its leaders. Despite an alleged $1 million to secure his appearance, it seems to give the organisation respectability and credibility. When Barbara Boucher attempted to leave the organisation, she was sued by NXIVM. They also filed criminal complaints of extortion. They sought to ruin Boucher's life through the courts. The lawsuits seemed never-ending, and NXIVM supporters spread lies regarding Boucher's guilt and blackmail. In Boucher's words, anyone who left NXIVM was terrified to talk to me. They had ruined Barbara's life and isolated her from her friends and loved ones. Raniere created an organisation which was centred around his mythology, the superintelligence, the mystique around his spiritual awakening, and the ability to train others to follow his lead ensured that Raniere was put on a pedestal within the group. The group thrived off of rules and status seeking, by having a set hierarchy within the group and a series of draconian rules to follow to rise within the ranks. He managed to brainwash people into being loyal adherents. Those loyal adherents were willing to commit social and moral wrongs against their better judgment to progress within the cult. This can be compared to any large-scale tyrannical regime or the smaller-scale cults like NXIVM. Raniere created a caste system in which people aspired upwards. Raniere created a siege mentality and ostracised any whistleblowers and non-members. The whole world against us mentality is perfect for a tight-knit group, and the idea of being under siege creates desperation. Desperate people willing to do desperate acts. The spite and venom that they had for former members were triggered by those feelings of betrayal and control. Raniere shows all of the qualities of being a control freak. The organisation could grow organically through its adherents by having the multi-level pyramid scheme in place. This took the workload off of the top members and pursued recruitment through lower level members, expanding and growing organically. And the biggest pull of the group is the idea of self-help and spiritual peace. We all live in a stressful, anxiety-ridden world where the weight and burden of human existence can seem unbearable. Anybody offering you peace, spiritual harmony, and control of your emotion is selling you snake oil. This is no quick fix. I wish there were. If the organised group ever asks you to do anything which you find morally uncomfortable, then see it as a red flag. The branding and having sex with a leader should have alarmed the likes of Alison Mack, the Berman sisters, and Battlestar Galactica's Nikki Klein, before they ventured into aiding and abetting the sex trafficker, embezzler, and liar Keith Raniere.
Well, you know right where my peace is. I brought it home, take it, baby. And I never spent one breath.